There we go. Namaskar and a very warm morning to all of you. As we move towards the end of April, I'm sure it's getting hot and it's getting warm wherever we are in most parts of India. And we are very, very, excited to bring a very different edition of our Dekho Apna Desh series. In one session today, you're going to actually see so much of our beautiful country that it'll just amaze you, like it always does. And today we will start in a very nostalgic front screen, which will remind many of us about Amar Chitra Katha. How many of us have grown up on the stories of Amar Chitra Katha and the Jataka tales? So we're going to start on that. And there's going to be the thatch roof, there's going to be the chick. The chick, incidentally, was so beautifully described by Nawab Sahab in the webinar that we had on Lucknow. And we are also going to meet an elephant by the name of Tara. And then from there, the story will take us to the relationship between the leopard and the shepherd in a symbiotic relationship. We are going to then go through another terrain where the efforts of the locals have actually restored 250 water reservoirs in a town that has been in news for all good reasons recently, Bhilwara in Rajasthan, and lots much more. And also we are going to play the Saraswati Veena in Thanjavur, a place from where you are going to see not just an aspect of tourism, but an aspect of Indian culture, where the place has very sensitively weaved through it's an orphanage also, and it has an old age home also. It serves meals to each other, but at the same time, you also hear the strains of the Saraswati Veena, which apparently was played by the gods also. So I think we are looking forward to a very exciting session. And who's going to take us through all these? It's a lady who you're going to see and talk soon to you, Shobha Mohan. Shobha, I asked her, I said, what is it that drives you the most when you do this? She says, I just love India. She was born in Delhi and then she grew up mostly in southern part of India, I think mostly in Vishakhapatnam. But she's been a railway man's daughter, so she traveled a lot. Her grandfather was in the airline. So I think she's had travel as part of her DNA, and she is doing full justice to her DNA. So over to you, Shobha, to take us through these beautiful meandering gullies and the villages as you have described in the little note of our incredible India. Do stay tuned in, viewers, because this is one exciting session. You don't want to miss anything here. Over to you, Shobha.
Thank you. Namaste, Vanakkam. It's a privilege to be a part of this MO2 initiative. I've been following it closely, and it's just excited me beyond doubt. And I hope I'm able to do justice to the wonderful initiative that's been laid out here. This is the next few pages of the presentation is basically my personal fascination for this fabulous country. It is also like for everybody else. It's also the way we all have evolved in the tourism field, because each and every destination shapes us in a certain way. And that is what I believe I will be sharing with you. Like always, if you have any questions, I'll take it up towards the end. I have it timed for a certain amount of time, so here we go. So should we? Yeah, can I share the screen?
Yeah, Shobha, go ahead.
Oh, I don't know where it's gone. Sorry, just give me a minute.
No worries, take your time.
Oh. So it is. Here we are. Oh, there we are. So I call it an epic, a great collection of stories. I hope you're able to hear me. So I call this an epic. It's a great collection of stories. Am I audible?
Yeah, Shobha, please go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So one of the first inspirations for the collection of stories that I'm going to present to you is Uncle Pai's Amar Chitra Katha, a huge tome of stories from Indian mythology and Indian stories from mythology and from our folk tales that was primarily intended to excite us as children to be interested in our heritage and our culture. It has built a huge amount of nostalgia for me, and that is how my story begins. Another great television show that has always inspired me, and I'm sure all of you will all of you will remember this. It used to be called Aisa Bhi Hota Hai. So between these two, growing up years was great. And when I started doing what I do under RARE by going and collecting these fabulous posse of hotels and stories under a collection, this is my nostalgia bit. This is the story of a lovely young girl called Vidyut Prabha. Now, Vidyut Prabha is a shepherd's daughter, and she used to go out into the fallow land outside her village to graze her cattle. One day, when she was resting, under the shade of one of the few trees that were there in the fallow land, a snake slithers up to her and requests her to protect him, because it tells her that, Vidyut Prabha, a group of villagers are chasing me, and I'm afraid they're going to kill me. Could you please protect and hide me? Vidyut Prabha, without thinking, in all her kindness, takes the snake and hides him behind her. The villagers come and go away, and Vidyut Prabha then sets the snake free and says, please go, and you're safe. The snake turns out that he's the king of the snakes, Nag Devta, and he says, I'm very...
Yeah. Are you planning to share a screen at this point? Because if you are, we are not able to see your share screen.
Oh, I did. I mean, I thought
that slithery snake, and
no, this is the picture. There is. Are you able to see the picture of the?
Oh, we are still getting to see you.
Oh, I'm sorry. 1 second. Let me see.
Not a worry. I think if you go at the bottom is the share screen.
I know, but I'm unable to. So there's it comes there, but it doesn't. I can't see it.
Do you want my technical team to assist you a bit?
I got that. Yeah, I got it.
Great.
Yes, yes. See, that's what it does. See.
No worries. I'm sure viewers and listeners, you can all understand that we are all so new to technology.
So I do need some help, because this is what it says. You cannot modify advanced sharing as these settings are logged by your admin.
Okay.
So I have this.
Shilohu, can you intervene and help Shobha in showing us the picture?
Shobha, you have to press the share screen button and select the screen on your left top corner. Then you will be able to see the screen.
So
share button, then select the screen, then again share button.
Okay.
We are able to see you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So that's Vidyut Prabha for you. So that's Vidyut Prabha, and of course the snake, Nag Devta asks her for a boon, and she says, "Oh, what could I want?" So she says, "Can you just create a forest for me, because I come to graze my cows and I can't find any shade to rest in while my cows have no shade." So he immediately blesses her with forest. Where you go, there will be a magic grove that follows you, and quite literally, wherever she walks, wherever she goes, a forest follows her. And I believe in the collection of stories that I'm going to tell you, and also in the not only as a part of our community, a lot of people out there staying, putting up hotels in these offbeat places with great stories to tell. This is what they have created. They have created small magic goes for you and your travelers to go and rest themselves after the weary times and from all their everyday routines. one of the first things that I would like to talk about is the story of the common man's heritage. Usually when we talk about heritage in India, the built heritage is usually about the royal heritage of forts and palaces and the royal havelis. But there is a huge, rich cultural heritage, which is the vernacular building heritage, of the local people from various regions of the country. And this is, it is fabulously exemplified in Sarai Victoria, this lovely place, very close to Khajuraho. And the building technique is using mud. When Joanna and Raghu wanted to build Sarai Victoria, the mandate was very clear. They wanted to build an eco-friendly retreat for guests to come and stay. And of course, it should be, should have all the amenities and things like that. But being eco-friendly and being quite low on carbon footprint is what their main mandate was. So the inspiration came from the local villages, and mud was their obvious choice. The thatch and the mud that you see was their obvious choice. One of the other reasons also for choosing to do a mud house was because they did not want the local community, the people in the villages, to feel alienated from what they have created. So basically it was to make them feel comfortable, and also a lot of the community works with them. So it was for them to be comfortable with a building, with an architecture that they are familiar with. Also very, very, very earthy. It's quite natural. Everything is out here is natural. You can see there are no manicured lawns or anything. They just let the wild grass to grow as it is, and it just creates a great atmosphere of nature. So the final product, of course, is these lovely mud houses, huge, with everything a village house would have, including an open to sky bathroom outside. At the same time, huge windows that has nature looking into you all the time. So that is one example of the common man's heritage. A second common man's heritage is, of course, the buildings and havelis. Great examples are Shekhawati, the havelis of Shekhawati, the mansions in Chettinad. And here's another great example of the Zamindar's bungalows in West Bengal. So that's a great example. Rajbadi Bawali was a personal restoration project, wherein the entire restoration took Ajay, the owner and the passionate person behind this project, about 7 years to restore a completely dilapidated building into what it exists today as a 30-room property outside of Calcutta. Not only is it just the property, the brick and stones of this, the way that he's brought in the entire culture of Bengal, like the pukurs are there, you have rambling lanes that take you into the village, which is right into the town, which is close by. All the little elements of Bengal from the Sondha Aarti to the festivals that they celebrated, it becomes a part of the story that Rajbadi weaves for travelers. An elephant story is a fascinating tale of how Tara has made Kipling Camp her home. That's Tara for you. She is the queen at Kipling Camp. She was the elephant Mark Shan rode when he rode around India when he wrote his book, The Travels on My Elephant. One of the most fascinating things is, as I went around on my journeys, I've met so many people who said, Mark Shan and Tara stayed here. Some of them are a part of the collection as well. Mark Shan was, stayed with us, and Tara used to be here when he was driving to Sonpur Mela. This is where Belinda and Anne found Tara, and Tara today occupies, the queen's position at Kipling Camp. There is no rides, there are no joy rides for you with Tara. However, what you have is you can actually walk with her to the Banjar River, where she goes for her bathing every evening. And man, does she walk fast! So you really have to walk quickly to keep pace with her. When we talk about forests, and we talk about about lodges, or we talk about independent properties that owners have created for you to live wherever they are in India, each one becomes a project for the owners to live their ideals. One of the things that is a big part of some fantastic wildlife lodges is the whole idea of rewilding. So there is no idea of manicured lawns and gardens, planting exotic plants and things like that, but actually to allow nature to come live in these areas, right? So what you will see is that 20 acres, 40 acres, sometimes 60 acres of land has just been left for nature to rewild herself and to just grow as it naturally is. What that does is it allows for all the endemic species of plants and animals to flourish in this area, creating a little forest ecosystem for you to live in. Samut Safari Lodge in Madhya Pradesh is a great example, and you'll see that in the 22 acres they have, fabulous trees of Palash and Bohemia and all these Mahua trees. These are all a part of the forest which is around you when you're staying there. What it does is it brings, of course, with trees and plants come in a lot of insects, and with insects there are a lot of birds. Sitting at your deck in any of these places, you can actually, spot close to 30 to 40 birds. Not only that, a lot of smaller animals like, civets and mongoose are there for you to, they're there in your property where you're living in the little forest that you're living in. You also get to see a lot of, some of the wildlife like the sambar deer or the spotted deer that kind of walk into the property, because hardwire fencing is not allowed. It's usually a hedge, and usually animals have a free run of the land. There's a little video I'm playing, and I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, so that was Samod Safari Lodge, and as you saw that there was a lot of local forests. You saw the Palash flowers in bloom, so it obviously must have been April. This is the time when the Palash and Mahua flowers are in full bloom, and it's a fantastic time to be there. Birding and wildlife sighting is fantastic. We come down to Rajasthan now, and one of the most enduring stories in these regions in the recent times is that of Beda, or Javai as it's popularly called. Now, in my opinion, the heroes of the Javai story are really not tourism, which is really taken the entire Beda area by storm, but it is actually the leopards and the shepherds who are there. Most importantly, the shepherds, and in a bit I'll tell you what it is. These are the Raikas or the Rabadis who have made this region their home, and for over 100 years, there's not been even one one case of human wildlife conflict. A group of almost 50-55 leopards have made this region their home, because around Beda, the granite rocks, we're talking about southwest Rajasthan. This is the granite rocks are great habitat for the leopards, and the Rabadis who live there with their livestock and their cattle, they've very gently and have managed to live and survive with the leopards in their backyard. The reason for this being that the Rabadis, who are primarily vegetarian and they deal in livestock, they deal in livestock alone. They believe that Shiva is their preferred god, and Shiva actually sits on tiger skin, but he wears a leopard skin around him. So for them, a leopard signifies their deity, which is Shiva, which is why in so many years there has been no conflict between the Rabadis or the Raikas and the leopards. It's only in the recent times this has been made into a sanctuary, and increasingly it will become it's like being made into a preserve. And going forward, we hope that there'll be some more extra protection given to this area, and maybe it becomes a sanctuary. But the any loss of cattle, any loss of livestock is compensated quickly and adequately, not only by the government, but also by a lot of hoteliers who are there, who kind of work with these Rabadis to ensure that they're a part of the whole story, right? You can't keep the Rabadis out of the story. So this is the fabulous story of the leopards and the shepherds. This is in Beda, Western Rajasthan. Another story, which is has been a story that I really love and I've been talking about for a very long time, is the water story, a story of a great and a fascinating story of water conservation, over 3 generations ago, this is Shahpura Bagh in Bhilwara, which has now been in the news, and they've done a fabulous job with this whole containment during this period. As you can see onto your left, that is the Farman, and that is why this is called Shahpura. This is the little town of Shahpura in Bhilwara district. When I went there in, I think 2007, and it was right in the middle of May, the minute I turned turned off the highway, at Mandla, and started driving to Shahpura, suddenly the whole vista around you changed. It was so green, and one wondered, how is this Rajasthan? I mean, so green, and suddenly the air conditioning was working and everything. And only when we reached there, we discovered the real reason behind it. Shahpura is so called because it was given as a gift to the ancestors of at Shahpura Bagh and that's the Farman, that's the official Farman that you have, and that's like vintage. So that's the video that shows you, and you can see the expanse of water. These are the two large lakes on which stands this 40-acre estate called Shahpura Bagh. A part of it is also farmland. A part of it is, of course, nature left wild. A part of it is also a place where people can go for boating. There's a lovely trail that they have that you can walk through. This great birding destination, and you can also see from here you can't, but there is a lovely GPS image in which you can actually see 250 reservoirs, all of them in slight turquoise dots around Shahpura Bagh. So in the far, in the middle of those green trees, you can see that is Shahpura Bagh. And those are the 2 lakes. One of them is called the Umed Sagar and the other is Nahar Sagar. these are also areas where you can go go boating. There are other lovely lakes in the area where they can take you there, where they can take you to when they take you on a jeep safari. And those are the two original buildings that have been restored as places to stay as suites that you have. The town of Shahpura itself is very, very interesting, and it kind of is like rural Rajasthan, really kept alive with a lot of stories and a lot of visual impact for people who are looking for the rural experience of India. So that is Shahpura Bagh for you. That is the Umaid Niwas, and this that's the Nahar Niwas. That is where the family actually stays just now. So the entire area is out there for you for cycling, for birding. Huge amount of birding activity here, especially in winters. So again, we are in Rajasthan. This is a lovely little fort called Ramatra Fort. So here's the thing. What happens is when in all these larger forts and palaces, they have enough support from trusts and things like that. And they are somehow or the other repurposed into hospitality projects or, cafes and things like that. More and more of these ideas coming up just now. It is these small, tiny forts in unknown places that really crumble and kind of get lost in history. A lot of people who kind of preserve this kind of heritage believe that they are custodians of heritage of India, and this is one such property very close to Savai Madhopur. It's called Ramatra. The beauty of Ramatra is, of course, it is pristine land and there's a huge lake and lots of walking opportunities, organic farms and everything. But the beauty is it has then been a personal project, which Ravi had reinstated. And that little forest that you see in brown is actually a dope forest that he had really kept from being violated. And during monsoon, it's just a fabulous patch of green that you will drive in. In winters, it kind of gets this rugged brown look. The fort itself is just a tiny 12-room property, and you have Ravi and Gitanjali looking after you, telling you all the stories that are there. Again, a great birding destination, lovely walks in the Dang area. Ramatra is so called because apparently Ram, on his way down south looking for Sita, actually stopped here and stayed here. So it is Ram Tehra, which over a period of time has become Ramatra. So Ramatra fort for you is not very far from Agra or from Jaipur, and quite close to Savai Madhopur, which allows you access into some very unknown territory for wilderness. Coming south now, and this is an instrument called veena, and particularly Saraswati veena. Tanjore is supposed to be the place where this particular instrument was first devised and put together. It is a string instrument. It is said that the tonal quality of the veena is as close to the human voice as possible. The veena that sits on the lap of Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge, is actually the Saraswati veena or the Tanjore veena. You all know that hymn, right? Veena Pustaka Dharini. It is this Saraswati veena we are talking about. It's a sad state with crafts, of southern India and elsewhere in the country, that there are only about 15 artisans who are actually making this veena, and you can actually visit them in South Main Street when you go into Tanjore and explore the area. However, the Tanjore veena actually got the geographic indication, which means that the veena is identified by the geography it is from. Swatma in Tamil Nadu has the distinct courage, has had the has the vision to bring in a lot of craft and folk art and weaving textile traditions and everything into one narrative, which is ensured that Tanjore is now a 2 to 3 night destination, allowing you insights into everything that Tanjore, which was originally which was the capital of the Chola dynasty, to be for you to be to understand and to learn from. And Tanjore Veena is one of them. And how you can actually go about visiting them is, of course, they organize walks into the lanes of the Veena makers, and that's where you go. If you're very interested in the whole Veena making idea, and also about the crafts in Tanjore, there is a lovely article called "Vanishing Livelihoods of Rural Tamil Nadu," which you should see, which was featured in the Hindu, which is a fantastic article, and it talks about a lot of these crafts that we've on the verge of losing. Again, in southern India, we have a lovely yoga retreat, probably one of the first yoga retreats in India, which kind of brought yoga into the premise of luxury, is called Shreyas Yoga Retreat. Shreyas is, the word Shreyas is derived from Mahabharata, from the Gita, where it means excellence. The idea was to create a space for excellence in yoga, its practice and its philosophy. Also, what this retreat did was not only did it put out yoga for beginners and for for senior practitioners of yoga as a space for them to come and practice or learn. They also put in other aspects of wellness and well-being, like soul food, which is fantastic vegetarian and healing foods together as their on their menus, surrounded by a huge organic garden of almost 25 acres. They also got people to get their hands dirty in the gardens and farms around. And one of the most beautiful things that they created was an opportunity to work with two communities that are there, two NGOs that they support, which is an orphanage and an old age home, where you can practice this whole philosophy of the joy of giving. So what guests do is you kind of get into the farms and you go and get fruits and vegetables and cook, participate in a cooking session with the cooks and the chefs at Shreyas, and actually personally go into the orphanages and the old age homes and actually feed them. So this is the joy of giving, very pertinent at this point in time when giving and kindness has to become second nature for us. Going high into the Trans-Himalayas, this is one beautiful property. Again, it's a living heritage. It's a palace where the current king of Ladakh lives. This is his home, and you're welcome actually in his. He has 5 suites that he has designated for people to come and stay with him. You can actually you're actually in a living palace. Now, what does being in a living palace means? It means that you wake up to the sounds from the monastery within the palace. You get to sit with Jigmet, who's the king. Jigmet Namgyal is the current king of Ladakh. So you get to sit with him, and he's in audience with people who have come to meet him. You can also partake in meals in the palace kitchen. Right. You can also get into the museum. You can partake in some festivals that are which are typically for the palace only. So that is a living palace for you, not very far from Leh town. This allows you a living palace experience, complete with personal interactions with the royal family and the people and the community that lives and works around here. Coming to another aspect of wellness, we've talked about Ayurveda. There is sound wellness that's coming up now. There is also a lot of Siddha that is being looked upon by some hoteliers as a means of wellness. there is a certain, there's a philosophy or a wellness principle from Japan, which is called Shinrin-yoku. Shinrin-yoku is actually a practice which allows you to go into forest and heal yourself with the rhythms of the forest. So it kind of allows you to walk barefoot on the forest, on the grass, on the forest floor. It allows you to hug trees. It allows you to sit down and meditate and just take in, take in the energies in the forest. So if you believe in prana, which are around trees, these are said to, help you overcome your blood pressure. It is said to bring down your pulse rate, and in Japan it's supposed to be a legitimate reason for you to take off and go off on a Shinrin-yoku or a forest bathing trip. This property, which is called Wild Mahasir, it's made forest bathing a part of his activity. It's got about 22 acres of land around it. 22 acres of land, which they have sustained as a lovely forest around the Adabadi tea estate. And in this forest, you can actually go out and practice forest bathing. You can, in the tea estates, you can do something called yoga samika, actually doing yoga in the tea garden. Surrounded by so much green, there's absolutely a lot of healing that happens to you. One of the other things about forest bathing is that it also allows you, they have a practitioner who will actually take you into the forest to do this with you. It also, you pick up and you forage for healing herbs and things like that, and crush it and make it into, you can actually right there make it into tea and drink it. Meditate in the positive prana that is given out by the tree. So this is all a part of Shinrin-yoku or forest bathing. Finally, the food part of it, which is, I think, one of the most singular narratives around travel is food. And there's a lot of food stories, in, these standalone hotels. It's always, it's true, and I believe this, that food, the food that we eat, the kind of food that you get at homes can never match the kind of food that you get in restaurants. I was, with a renowned chef, and he told me that people at home, the women and your other people cooking at home, they want to make their food taste like that it is in the restaurants. But the mandate for the people at the restaurant, the chefs in the restaurant, is to make a dish as authentic to the home version as possible. And among all our hotels, there are different food stories. One of them is Bhansrodgarh, which is again fabulously located on the Chambal River. And he himself is a foodie, great food stories that he has to tell you. And the platter they lay out for you, this is how it looks. And when I talk about food stories, we can't, there is this whole difference between the South Indian cuisine and the Kerala cuisine. Everything comes under this Madrasi Khana, right, for people in the north. But they are very, very different foods, and the quality and the textures of food are very different. For instance, Tamil Brahmanical food is very mild and light, and when compared to Kerala or Chettinad. So each of these food comes from very different genres, and all this becomes a part of the food story that is a part of a lot of these standalone hotels. Heritage hotels, for instance, have a lot of secret recipes that have been shared from generation to generation, not out there, not printed in any recipe books, but you can only enjoy it when you go there. India and its people, and this is something which is very intrinsic especially when you talk about off the beaten track places where the owners are key to the experience that is provided with you. These are custodians of huge stories. I mean, fantastic stories of their own personal stories, of the stories of the local communities, of things that are happening in and around them, of stories that have been played and replayed by their ancestors. So there is a lot of that happens in these areas. And one of my favorite examples is to go and stay in a place which is run by a polo player. I mean, you get the full rundown on what polo playing is, or with the royal family who kind of gives you the entire story of the region. The other fascinating things of conversations with local people is when you go out on village walks or on rural rambles, stop by and talk to a tribal person, is that you get an insight into their lives, into lives that you and I have we are far removed from those kind of lives. Sometimes they're fantastic insights into, and in their small little advice and insights into their lives are insights for ourselves also. The chai walas, the flower sellers, women in the textile industries. These people carry a fantastic stories of their lives, living of their craft, which is fabulous things to share with travelers, and it will be very exciting for you as travelers to be going there to enjoy these stories. Finally, this is what it is. In these days of lockdown, when everybody is talking about how sustainability has to become a part of our narrative, and it has to become a part of every conversation we have. This is a campaign for all of you, and it's a little thought-provoking thing. And thank you, Agrani Gupta, for this wonderful phrase that you coined for us, which is "Earth ka kuch karo, varna anarth ho jayega." Even before this COVID-19 came in, there was so much of climate challenges, talking about what over tourism is doing to people. So we believe that there is another way to look at destinations, hotels. There is another way to look at travel. That is through the lens of sustainability. And you can all define sustainability in your own ways if you're aware of the impacts of what tourism is causing, which is obviously hugely positive, but it is also, has a negative impact, which for a lot of people with thought and with ideation and with innovation, you can actually work around it. Single-use plastic is a huge byproduct of tourism, and it's something that you could really look at. Water conservation, what people do with their water, with their grey water, is again another fantastic area for you all to consider. It's not only about saying no to plastic. There's a huge amount of work that is going on in these standalone hotels across the country. You might want to look at it. You might want to look how sensible they are in using water, which primarily belongs to the local community, right? So you might want to see how they behave where water is concerned. Wildlife and forest conservation, again, a big part of this thing. What is it that they're doing when they talk about conservation of forests and wildlife? All of them, in fact, most wildlife lodges have a very strong ethos where wildlife conservation is concerned. You might want to look at it. Low impact tourism. What are people doing in terms of, how many rooms are they constructing? What is their land to key ratio? Is it a vertical property? Having 200 rooms in a 2-acre property creates a lot of stress on, it consumes a lot of energy, right? Generally, small standalone hotels are low on energy. Of course, it also addresses a lot of post-COVID fears. Garbage, what are they doing with their garbage? What is the local community engagement? What is it that tourism should actually do? These are questions for you to ask yourself at a larger level. Hotels that actually give job opportunities for the local communities does two things. It keeps the locals in their own villages and towns. The second thing is it also gives a great flavor for all the standalone hotels, because the local community bring in their own skills like lipais and the mud art. All this become a part of the narrative. Heritage conservation is heritage repurposing a part of your travel story. Is this the kind of hotel that you would like to promote? Again, becomes a big part of your narrative. Apart from heritage, the built heritage, there's a huge segment of intangible heritage, which is in the form of lost textile, crafts, folk art. All of this form a part of our intangible heritage, and there are great many stories to be told when you look at it. Finally, how do you want your guests, or how do you want to discover a destination? Do you want to sit around in safaris, in safari vehicles? Do you want to drive around in this thing, or is cycling a big part of what you're doing? Would you prefer riding as a part of your destination exploration? Would cycling be a part of your destination exploration? So these are some of the things that you would be talking about when you talk about sustainability in tours and travel. Finally, I come to the end of the presentation with a little story when we are talking about the domestic tourism and how it is going to impact us in these times of where there's lockdowns and borders are shut and airlines are not taking off. When the British bought tea plantation into India, majority of the tea in the Commonwealth market, the market share for tea, belonged to China, right? And for all their plantations, the British were really ideating and grieving over the fact that the tea from India is going no place. When a fine young Englishman came up with the idea that India is its own market, right? And very quickly, India made a market for tea in itself. And the way they promoted tea to Indians was in different ways. In Kerala, it was largely a coffee drinking area. And there they went in by saying, tea makes your skin lighter. They came into the north, which is largely, lassi and milk drinking and shikanji drinking area, by putting it in, areas where there are a lot of workers, and they brought in this whole word called tazgi, which is basically means freshness. So even today, tea is large. The Indian chai is a big has its own market within India, and that is the takeaway from this story for the domestic travel. So we have a big story, we have a big market for ourselves in the domestic travel. How we would reach out to the Indian travelers is through stories and nostalgia. How our dadis made a particular kind of dal, or a sambar was made, or how it was going to this village, how was it going on trains. These are nostalgia stories that will bring us back to traveling into our own towns and cities and create value for tourism again and bring India back. So thank you very much. That is the end of my presentation. I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in, and with a small note saying, with a small note and a prayer of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We are all one universe, and working together, I'm sure we will come out of this wonderfully well. Thank you.
So are you playing a video at this juncture?
No, there were two videos.
I thought maybe you were playing something. So
no.
Thank you so much for a wonderful talk. And as we meandered through very different parts of India, I think there was so much to learn and enjoy in that process. And they say that travel is like an endless university, and you never stop learning.
Yes.
And so it's been another amazing day of travel and learning as we went back on nostalgia to the Amar Chitra Katha. And of course, Tara seems like so endearing, and I'm sure we all want to see her very, very soon. A few questions came up as you were talking, and they've actually been coming as a narrative on tourism, as you rightly mentioned, not just now at post-COVID, but also before that, how do you balance this whole thing about development of tourism and encouraging people to travel and yet leaving it sustainable and also making it profitable? Because I think developing that fine balance, would you like to share some insights, because you've traveled so much?
So, I mean, tourism it is one of the largest, job banks, I think. I mean, so many, 1 in every 10 person around the world is in tourism. So tourism has to happen. But the way sustainability will work is when we look at it at 3 levels: the tour operators, the hotels and the other suppliers, and the traveler himself. They have to be in align and in sync with the whole idea of sustainability. And when we talk about sustainability, you have to figure out and be aware of what is it that you're talking about. So it's always people, planet, profit, right? I would like to put planet first in these times. So planet, people, and profit. So whenever you envisage your business vision, this is how you will probably work at it. So in the tourism context, what is the kind of hotels you will choose? What is it that you will allow? What are the destinations you would like to go to? If you honestly know that there is a huge number of people going into a destination, you would try and move it out of that place and try and recommend something else. For a good example is Taj is inundated so much, so the government has to start putting, they have to start reducing the numbers. They have to start to put caps on numbers. But look at Hampi. is the Taj of the South, right? So you, as a tour operator, I think you're in an enviable position of trying to, really regulate where you want your guests to go, and the narrative is with you. You will be making that strong pitch for the destination that you want to promote and where you want to go, which I think will naturally happen now because of people wanting to be distant from each other. Also, what is the kind of hotel that you use? That is why I use the windows of sustainability. What is it that you would like to look at a hotel for? For a long time, hotels were about what is the best price I'm getting. That narrative has to change. OTAs have really done a lot of done us a big favor in this. So we are all looking at hotels from the viewpoint of pricing, which should be there, which is also a learning for hoteliers. But you would want to look at hotels from this perspective. You want to look at every service that you provide from this perspective. There are people who are looking at who get women to be your walking guides. There are people who look at entire experiences that are run by women whom they have trained and things like that. You might want to include these things into the programs that you sell.
Yeah, in fact, I think the webinar coming up on Thursday is going to be all about women driving tourism.
Women driving, tourism.
It's an exciting one coming up.
Yes.
And another thought which has been raised at many platforms, including many of the queries today, is that what sort of future do you see for luxury tourism in India, particularly in the post-COVID era?
So again, luxury for me is not, especially if you look at standalone hotels, luxury cannot really be, quantified, or it cannot be equated with what you see as the large group hotels. So in these smaller properties, luxury is defined differently. Right? Do you have great beds to sleep in? Yes, of course. What is the definition of luxury? That is going to change. Are you in a crowded place? One good example is a very well-known, wildlife lodge specialist came into India, right? And they wanted to put up hugely luxurious lodges in central India, but they realized that the experience in the forest is same for everybody, whether you stay in a XYZ amount of hotel with the topmost luxury, or you they are staying in a in a 3-star or a 2-star lodge. What that did is, what it did for the industry per se, and also for for all the lodges that are around this, it changed their narrative from saying, this is how my rooms look like, this is how my lodge look like, this is how close I am to the gate, to how well your naturalist can translate the experience for you. What is the quality of the wildlife experience that you're going there for? Luxury will be defined by the quality of the experience, rather than by the hardware trappings that, sadly, this is what is usually defined.
Yeah, I think I agree, because I think most of the feedback that we get on all the travel programs that we do is that most people around the world are looking for stories. They're looking for those immersive and experiential, things to carry back. A small little, as I mentioned earlier, also a small little half-baked and half-shaped kind of an earthen bowl which is made is exciting takeaways and weaving a few strands of fabric in the weft and the weave. So yes, I think India is so full of potential.
So full of them. I mean, you will be amazed at the amount of, and every any idea. And you see, when this whole experiential travel began, and there are some of my friends out there, when this whole experiential idea began for travel, right, it removed the onus from what the tour operator wanted to sell, and it put the onus on the customer. It became customer oriented. The customers will drive this whole thing about luxury. Yes, of course, they all want to stay in in very comfortable, luxurious places with proper audited service quality and everything. But at the same time, they would want to know where is their dollar going. Is that a part of your business? Do you want to do you want to know, does the traveler want to know that his last rupee or every money he spent in the national park or in a hotel that he stayed is actually impacting a local community, is helping them with their medical, this thing is helping them with their children education, general development? Is that how you want to look at your business? Is something a call that the tour operator has to take. And I also believe travel is going to come back into the ambit of the tour operators, who are in a great enviable position to really tune this into the way the new the way the new tourism is going to look post COVID-19.
Yeah, I think in fact, as I look at it, Shobha, and I'm sure you'll agree that this is in fact a great opportunity for a country like India. When the world is talking of sustainability, there is a throwback to the life that was much simpler and that was not lived through processed foods and packaged foods, going back to the home cooking, going back to
Absolutely.
simple ways of
Yeah.
life, and enjoying the world in its various forms, and not having hotels as a holiday destination, which kind of the room pretty much repeats one after the other. So
Yes.
while on a business trip, you want things to be perhaps more predictable. So you exactly want to know where the laundry bag is and where the hangers are. But on a holiday, you actually want to look for variety, and you look for that small little trinket box on the side table, which is a little differently shaped, creates a different kind of excitement.
Yeah. And to have I mean, why shouldn't it be a luxury, if as a luxury hotelier, if I tell them that I want to rid the world of plastic, and can you please bring your own soap, shampoo, and moisturize? I mean, what's wrong with that? How does it impact my luxury? See, this whole thing about luxury, where we believe the excesses, I mean, long buffet tables, the food wastage in the name of luxury, the excesses in the name of luxury, is what is and to imagine that you're in a country where, right next door, you don't have people having 3 meals a day, while here you have a large buffet, half of which you probably won't even eat or look into. So these are the questions that we should be asking when we say looking towards a more sustainable travel ideology. These are things I would be looking at.
Yes, no, absolutely. I agree with your tagline. Earth ka kuch karo, nahi to anarth ho jayega. So I think it's a COVID is giving us time, in fact, to reflect even more deeply on questions which have been confronting a lot of us, even otherwise. So thank you so much, Shobha. I think it's been an amazing presentation, and many takeaways, many thoughts, I'm sure, for all our viewers. And I definitely want to therefore thank our viewers for staying on for a program which is a little different from the way we walk through Lucknow or Mamalapuram on a given day. Yesterday we went through Puducherry. And for tomorrow, we are going to tune into again a different part of India. It is a webinar which is going to be hosted in the northern part of Bengal, and will walk us through the potential of rural tourism and community-based tourism again. But again, bringing those very peculiar experiences of an area which will then also walk you through to tea estates and tea tourism. You can serve a warm cup of first flush, second flush, the choice is yours. So viewers, stay tuned in with us. Tomorrow 11 a.m. we are going to bring you and maybe go chuk on the Darjeeling Himalayan Railway also, I think. So lots of exciting things coming up tomorrow. In the meantime, because we are dealing with COVID really, really well as a country, but the resolve needs to be maintained just the way we have done it for the past few weeks. So stay strong, stay healthy, and look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow once again. Thank you, Team NEGD. Thank you, Shobha. And thank you, viewers, for keeping us bright and alive. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Meenakshi, ma'am. Thank you so much.